Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches. Today, for my 400th video, I'm going to be talking about the 2005 film A Christmas Tale, which is sometimes stylized, as in the image on your screen, as Xmas Tale, or to give it its original Spanish name, Cuento de Navidad, which I believe literally translates to A Christmas Carol, but presumably they decided to avoid that title in order to prevent any Dickensian confusion. The film is set in 1985, and while exploring an isolated part of the local woods, five tween kids that seem to be aged somewhere between 12 and 14 discover a woman who has fallen into like a hunter's pit or something like that. The woman, who is dressed as Santa Claus, appeals for their help, and the kids initially intend to provide the requested aid, with some of them staying with the woman, not in the pit obviously, at the top of the pit, while the others go to the local police station for assistance. However, at the police station, the kids learn that this woman is a notorious thief named Rebecca Exposito, and she has just stolen 2 million pesetas, which sounds like a lot of cash to a bunch of kids, though it's actually only about 35,000 US dollars in today's money. So the tweens change their plans. They're still willing to help the woman out of the pit, but only after she tells them where the money is first. The bank robber, perhaps not believing that these kids will carry through on the threat to leave her in the pit, refuses to cooperate. But the kids weren't bluffing. They leave her in the pit for day after day, keeping her alive with whatever food and drink they can scrounge up from their homes and carry out into the woods. Of course, sooner or later the kids are going to slip up. An adult's going to realise they're sneaking off into the woods all the time. The only real question then is, will the bank robber manage to get out of the pit before that? And what will she do when she does? So this film is actually part of a series of Spanish TV movies that were collectively produced under the banner Películas para no dormir, or Films to Keep You Awake. And I apologise to any Spanish speakers for my mangling of the language. Most of the cast will not be familiar to English-speaking audiences, though there is one exception. Elsa Pataki, best known these days for being in the Fast and the Furious 5 through 8, and also for marrying Chris Hemsworth, has a supporting role in the film. Not that you're likely to recognise her, for reasons we'll discuss shortly. Now, horror website Bloody Disgusting loved this movie, giving it a rapturous 10 out of 10 review. My thoughts on it are more ambivalent, mostly due to the final act. We'll delve into the specifics of that and why it doesn't really work for me towards the end of this video. I'll need to be a bit spoilery for that part, so I'll include a warning when we get there. First, though, let's look at what I feel is the movie's biggest strength. To my mind, there's no accident to this film being set in 1985. That's the year The Goonies came out, and if ever a movie was The Goonies Gone Bad, it's this one. The Goonies was part of a wider cultural kids on bikes cinema phenomenon that arguably launched with 1982's E.T., the Extraterrestrial, and also found expression in such films as the delightfully daffy 1984 BMX offering Rad. The world would be a poorer place if it did not have Lori Loughlin doing a BMX bike prom dance. A Christmas Tale is clearly tapping into both that zeitgeist as a whole and also into the Goonies specifically. We've got the same premise of a bickering group of kids having a secret adventure to which most of the adult world is oblivious. We've also got some similar characters and dynamics within the group of kids too, though I will say that overall these five kids are a lot less toxic towards each other than the Goonies were, even as they're much, much more toxic in other ways. And just in case you're a bit slow to realise that A Christmas Tale is very much evoking this kids on bikes adventure genre, the director decided to make it a wholly textual with one very simple visual device. With the exception of the thief, Rebecca Exposito, we never see the face of a single adult character. Much like how the adults in the various Charlie Brown films only speak in nonsense noises, the adults here are faceless nobodies. Hence why you're unlikely to recognise Elsa Pataki in this. What makes this The Goonies Gone Bad, of course, is the kids' decision to keep Rebecca Exposito trapped in a pit in the depths of the forest. So she's in a hole in the ground with nothing to eat or drink but what they bring her, nowhere to relieve herself except where she's living and sleeping, and with the depths of winter fast approaching. Now, Rebecca Exposito is a potentially violent criminal, so it's hard to say the five tweens are any better. The kids are, in short, abusing this woman with inhumane treatment and also putting her life in jeopardy. And for what? The princely sum of $7,000 each. It's no surprise to me that the thief declines to reveal the location of the cash, given the cruelty they're willing to inflict to get the money. It seems entirely likely the kids would be ruthless enough to just leave her in the pit once they got it. The cash is Exposito's only leverage, so she can't afford to give it up. But this is not simply a case of cruel and violent teens versus sympathetic victims, such as, is the case in the 2006 French film Them. Rebecca Exposito is a notorious criminal, and it's clear that if she ever gets out of the pit, she's going to prioritise hurting the kids over making her getaway. So there's nobody who can really be called the good guy here, and I think that where your sympathies lie will vary from audience member to audience member. It's also likely that for some people, the lack of anyone decent to identify with will be a real barrier to their enjoyment of this movie. I didn't find that the case for me, but there was another feature of the film that did rather mar my appreciation of it. Talking about that will involve some measure of spoilers, so here's your warning that if you continue the video, I'm going to spoil a fairly major plot development. Still with me? Okay. For me, the biggest problem with this movie is that someone, whether it was the writer, the director, or the producer, I don't know, was determined to wedge a supernatural angle into the film. And for me, that angle fails for a couple of reasons. First, because it's wholly unnecessary. You don't need a supernatural monster to make a scary movie, and A Christmas Tale was effectively creepy and tense without it. Second, because the justification for the supernatural element is very clumsy. The kids are big fans of a, made up for the purposes of this movie, zombie film, and one night they conduct a ritual from it to ensure that if their captive dies, she will return as the living dead. Their motives for doing this aren't terribly well justified, but that is not in and of itself a big issue. Kids sometimes do stuff without a good reason. The problem is that it ultimately seems to have worked. So some trashy, and believe me, what we see of the made-up zombie movie is very trashy. Zombie flick includes a real ritual for zombification. Is that the plot point I'm supposed to be buying here? Now, I've seen one review suggest that moving this twist to earlier in the film would make it work better. And maybe that could be the case, though personally I think a more important change would be to provide a better justification for Exposito's transformation. The way it plays out now, I was jolted completely out of the film in its last 5 minutes, which was a shame because I had enjoyed what came before that. Next time, going to continue the holiday season theme, but go for something that's aiming to be much more wholesome and family friendly, the lesbian romantic comedy Christmas at the Ranch from 2001. But that is next time. Until then, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you've seen A Christmas Tale, let me know what you thought of it.